If you've been wanting to declutter a space in your home, but every time you think about it, your brain just stops, this one is for you.
Nikki just put together a free guide called Where Do I Even Begin? And it is exactly what it sounds like. A practical, ADHD-friendly starting point for anyone who keeps meaning to declutter, but cannot figure out how to actually get into it.
No overwhelming to-do list, no judgment about how it got this way. Just a clear, honest framework for getting started. Built for the brain that knows what it wants to do and cannot figure out how to start.
Grab it free at takecontroladhd.com/ADHD-declutter.
All right, on with the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on True Story FM. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
Oh, hi, Nikki Kinzer. It's so good to see you today. How are you feeling?
You know, a little bit of a hot flash.
I was going to say,
I'm doing good.
For our conversation today, I just want you to know I've cranked my AC just to be in solidarity. I'm freezing my ass off, but just to be one of the crowd. We are talking about later life diagnosis. And, you know, let's be honest, it's not going to be really a me show today. I don't have a lot that I feel like I can authentically contribute to some of the conversations around hormones and things that we're going to talk about, but I am present. I'm part of the team. Before we get into the show, I want to tell you about our Patreon community, because if you're a regular listener, this is your next move. Members who join us at patreon.com/the ADHD podcast get early ad-free access to every episode, access to member-only channels in our Discord server, and a seat in this very live stream in our recording sessions of the show, where you can ask questions directly to our guests, and they can join us in chat as we record. Plus, we always throw in special events along the way. Honestly, the thing I hear people talk about more than any of that is the community itself. It is such an incredibly special community. It's a group of real people, all living with ADHD, who show up for each other in an incredible way. If you've ever wanted to be more than just a listener of this show, that's where it happens. Visit patreon.com/the ADHD podcast to learn more and join us. And if you're not ready to do that yet, that's fine too. Find us at takecontroladhd.com, connect with us on the socials, join us in the free area of our Discord server, and sign up for the weekly email. We would love to have you wherever you want to land. We have been exploring what ADHD looks like as we age, and today's conversation starts with the moment a lot of that reckoning begins: late diagnosis. For women, that story carries an extra layer, because perimenopause and menopause reshape the hormonal foundation the ADHD brain runs on. And for many women, that's the moment everything that was manageable suddenly is not. Our guest today has lived that story and built an entire career helping other women navigate it. Linda Roggli is a professional certified coach, award-winning author, founder of the ADDiva Network for ADHD Women 40 and better, and one of the most recognized voices in the world on the intersection of midlife hormones and ADHD. She lives and works in beautiful Durham, North Carolina, with 3 ADHD Shelties, a non-ADHD cat, 7 hens, good grief, Linda, and 1 very supportive OCD husband. Linda, welcome back to the ADHD podcast. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. It's actually my first time I've ever been here, so I'm thrilled.
You've been on this show before.
You've been on the show once before.
Was that? Oh, it was?
But it was a long time ago.
It was a long
It's
time
been
ago.
years.
My ADHD memory doesn't go back that far.
It does not go back that far. It was a long time ago.
Okay,
it
well,
was.
So thank you for welcoming me back.
Well,
I feel silly.
You're very welcome. I'll cut all of that. Don't worry about it.
Oh, good. Good.
Well, it's really good to see you, and thanks for being here. All right.
So glad we could make this work.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. All right. So I'm taking the lead on this one because Pete's like, I don't know much about menopause and perimenopause.
Let me just say up front,
well, do.
I've already been corrected in the chat room. Yes, I am aware that men go through their own kind of, well, I'll go ahead and say it, menopause. It does happen for men too. I'm aware of that. And that's sort of not what we're talking about today. So.
Yes.
Go for it.
And you have a wife.
And I have a wife.
We'll
Believe
find
me.
that.
The official name is andropause.
Andropause. Okay.
Okay. Good
Well,
to
I'll
know.
just say for the record, I haven't noticed it yet. So
Okay.
that's fair.
It's different. It's very different. That's for sure.
Well, this is where I want us to start. I want us to take us back to your own diagnosis. When you were in your 40s, perimenopause was definitely in full swing is what I'm trying to say. What was going on in that moment when they said, "Hey, I think you have ADHD"? What was going on with you?
Actually, it was my husband and I were in couples therapy, and I don't know why, but I went by myself one time to couples therapy. I don't know what that was. Anyway, he would ask me questions and I would be blah, 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 blah. And then he would ask another question. It was the same kind of thing. And he stopped and he looked at me and he said, "You know, you might have ADHD." And I literally laughed in his face. And then I realized he wasn't laughing back.
Yeah.
Said, and then he realized he made a mistake and he's like, "Oh, whoops. Okay, never mind. Just, run by one of the bookstores and pick up this book, Driven to Distraction." And I'm like, "Fine, I'll do it right now." And it was like November and I was running. I had my winter coat on and I went to the B&N store. I won't mention the actual name. And I said, "Well, where's this book? I have every self-help book there is. Why do I not have this one?" And he pointed it out to me and I said, "Well, I'm going to prove them wrong." And I sat down on one of those glossy benches over there where the magazines are. And I opened it up and I started reading it. And I'm like, "Oh my God," I ran to the cash register. I'm reading it at the stoplights because I'm trying to find out what it says. And then I went, "Oh my God, this is me." But honestly, I didn't really connect it to menopause until a couple of years later because I decided, "Oh, so what if I have ADHD?" I went through all the medications. They didn't work for me. Actually, they worked exactly the opposite of what I thought they would work. They put me to sleep, which was actually, now that I know more about it, it's probably appropriate. But when I went, the estrogen piece that really killed me was I said, "Well, am I in menopause?" And I went to a guy. Now, this is an interesting story, is that my OBGYN was a man, and he was having affairs with two of the women in his office, two of the nurses in his office.
No way.
Both found out, and he got beat up by one of the husbands, and so they sent him to sexual rehabilitation or whatever it was. So they hired a guy who was like came out of retirement, and I sat down with him and I said, "I think I'm in menopause." He said, "Are you still having periods?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Then you're not." That was all I got.
Wow. So you had all of the drama
I did.
in the office,
Yes, and
you were told that you're not in menopause, and that was it. That's all you got.
Well, now I know more about this, and what happened was that they said, "Well, why don't we check your hormones?" But you can't check your hormones while you're still on birth control pills, and I was having such bad migraines that they put me on low-dose birth control pills, and that really got rid of the migraines. I mean, I was migraine-free, which they were really hormonally related migraines. They only happened around my period. And so I went off of them and I just went like loopy. They checked my hormones and they said, "Yes, you're definitely probably in perimenopause." And I said, "Okay," but they didn't ever tell me to go back on the pills. So I didn't. And I remember walking into Macy's one day and I was the only one in the department. And I went up to the register to pay for something. And she said, "Well, do you have a card or whatever it was?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "Well, let me just get your address." And I went, I can't remember my
exactly.
address. And
Yeah.
the woman said, she leaned over. I said, "I'm sorry, I just can't remember anything anymore." She leans over, she passed my hand and she said, "It'll get better, honey." Okay. She was a little bit older than me. And I thought, when will it get better? So it actually got better for me when I switched doctors and I ended up with a psychiatrist who was also an OBGYN, and she couldn't do OBGYN because she'd had an injury. And so you'd think that combination would really be perfect, right?
Yeah.
And she said, "I think you need to go on estrogen." And I said, "Oh no. Oh no." The Women's Health Initiative had just come out and said they stopped it because the women were getting breast cancer and they were having more heart attacks and all this stuff. And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not doing that." It took her a year to convince me that having 50 or 60 hot flashes a day was not a good quality of life.
Yeah.
And I finally said, "Okay, I will do it." And, I accidentally got the right kind of estrogen because she prescribed me these little patches, these little estrogen patches, and I changed them twice a week, and I swear to you, it was like I woke up. And people talk about, like, putting on glasses when they take ADHD medication, which I don't, by the way, but, it was just like I was back to me again, and it was such a difference for me. And remember too that, you weren't supposed to take estrogen all by itself. But Dr. Patricia Quinn said in her experience that ADHD women did better with estrogen only, and that's a big no-no. So I did that. I didn't take progesterone with it, with this little patch. I didn't have a combination patch, if you will. And what I had to do is every year I had to have a vaginal ultrasound. Sorry about that if it's a little too TMI. But the reason for that was to make sure that I didn't develop endometrial cancer, because that's what
Oh,
happens. That
right.
can happen with estrogen only. So, I literally like, I'm gonna back up a little bit here. When I had that kind of, I don't even know what my name is, I literally ran to the ADHD doctor, the psychiatrist again, and said, "Okay, it's time. Give me more medicine." And he said, ADHD women need estrogen. Go get some." I thought, "Couldn't you give me a little sample? Just as I walk out the door, just give me just a little sample." So that's when I went through this whole thing about getting this estrogen, which really was another year again of kind of going through a big mess. And I will tell you that I Googled menopause, and perimenopause wasn't such a title then. I just Googled menopause at that time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find out. People were saying, hot flashes, that's kind of typical, everybody knows about that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
what I was having was irritability. I was
Mhm.
so irritable, and no, I would Google irritability, and so it kinda came to a head when I was out shopping and realized that I was not gonna make it back on time for a dental appointment. And I called them and I said, "Well, I'm not gonna be there. I can be like 15 or 20 minutes late." She goes, "Oh, well, we have to cancel your appointment then." She was just like, "You have to can't do that." And
Yeah.
I was just so irritated by her voice. I just said, "Fine, you're fired. I'm never coming back." And she was like, "Oh, no." I said something like, "What the hell?" And she goes, "You are not supposed to cuss at me." And I'm like, "That's not a cuss word to me." But
Yeah.
anyway, she called
Wow.
she goes, "I had to apologize to the doctor because you are not gonna use it." I'm like, "Just leave me alone."
Yeah. Right,
So,
right.
it was just kind of the pinnacle of my irritability. I'm sure my husband endured it a lot more, but at least he didn't complain about it too much. He just goes, "Oh, well, that's just Linda, I guess." I don't know.
Right, right.
Anyway, it was
Well,
it was ridiculous.
you're talking about estrogen and I'm really let's go back to that. What is estrogen actually doing for the ADHD brain and what happens when it starts to drop? Like what's going on?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because estrogen has this is not just for women, men have estrogen as well, just like
Mhm.
women have testosterone, right? But for women, estrogen is released through the sexual organs, right? Your ovaries, that prompts that menstrual period kind of thing where you release eggs and all that kind of good stuff. It also impacts every single part of your body. When you run out of estrogen, everything is affected in your body for women, including your brain.
Mhm.
Estrogen acts kind of as a little helper for dopamine, and if you remember, you've listened to lots of these podcasts, you know that dopamine is really important for ADHD brains. We actually don't have attention deficit, we have dopamine deficit, which is why we rush up against deadlines because it triggers all that dopamine again.
Mhm.
So when we don't have that estrogen, that little helper up there of helping us have more estrogen available in our brain, which is our ADHD brains are low in anyway, when it declines, then we don't get as much dopamine support in our brains either. And
Mhm.
and keep in mind that during perimenopause, well, let's just go back. When we start out when we're like, I don't know, puberty, like we're maybe 10 or 12, something like that, our estrogen is just starting to kick in. So our estrogen's kind of irregular then, and it really doesn't settle down into these regular monthly or irregular monthly cycles until we're maybe 18 or 20. And then it kind
Mhm.
of stays that way while we're in our fertile years.
Right.
And then at perimenopause, rather than having this relatively regular cycle, it goes crazy.
Mhm.
It recognizes that the ovaries are not releasing the prompt for more estrogen, And it says, oh, I guess we need to provide more and more and more. So it goes skyrockets way up. And then it says, well, I guess it's not doing any good. And then it goes way below anything that we ever have in our regular monthly cycles. And it skyrockets again, but not quite as high. So we have this enormous, not just a roller coaster, but a skyrocket roller coaster of going up and down and up and down. Of course, at perimenopause, it gradually, those cycles are lower and lower and lower. And I just want to be clear, because I didn't really understand this at first, because, and I guess it goes back to that older doctor. He said, if you're still having periods, you're not in menopause. And menopause is actually the last period you have, and you have to have no periods for one whole year. So you don't really know when that last period is until it's a year later and you look back and go, oh, I guess that was it.
And now I'm in menopause.
Exactly. I am postmenopause. After that period, I'm postmenopause. So
interesting.
menopause is one. Menopause.
I didn't know there was a postmenopause.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Get ready.
Yeah.
Well, I'm there. I'm postmenopause. Did not know it, but I am. So
well,
the world knows that now. That's lovely.
It's a thing to be proud of.
Yes, it is.
40% of our lives are in postmenopause. So we better learn to really enjoy it. And you just mentioned that you were having a little hot flash. The thing about postmenopause is that it has a lot of the same symptoms as perimenopause.
It never goes away.
What a
Is that what you're telling
drag.
me?
I know. I literally have talked to 75-year-old women who say, I'm still having hot flashes. When do they stop?
Yeah.
She goes, am I ever postmenopause? Come on, give me a break here.
I do have a question for you because
yes, I have answers probably.
Okay. Well, I want to go back to when you first got that diagnosis and you were like, nope, I don't want to take any kind of hormone replacement therapy, right? That's what I'm calling it.
Yep.
And because there was this big fear. And when I was going through all of this, there's still that talk around it. But as your doctor said, I felt like my quality of life, I needed a better quality of life.
Yeah.
I was not happy. I was miserable.
Yeah.
So I know for me too, personally, Linda, it changed my life for sure, for the better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What is the science around that now? Like what can we talk about that will either, just make people feel more comfortable and more educated about whatever decision they make, whatever's best for them.
Right. Well, they used to call it HRT, hormone replacement therapy. It never replaces the amount of estrogen that we have when we're younger. As a matter of fact, when I found out about this, I said, I don't want to go on hormone replacement or hormone therapy, they now call it. And the woman, my doctor at that time, said, well, the amount of estrogen that you're getting in the hormone therapy is actually lower than it is in your low dose birth control pills. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. Number one, I felt a little bit better about it. But here's the deal with the WHI, the Women's Health Initiative. The Women's Health Initiative it had several segments, and this one, the only one that they stopped was this one about hormones and menopause, et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, what they did was they started with women who were already post-menopause. Many of them were already in their 60s, and they found two things that were wrong. The reason they stopped is they found more heart problems and they also cardiac issues. They also found more breast cancer incidents. So what they've now found is that study was fatally flawed. This part of the study was fatally flawed. Number one, because they used women, they enrolled women who already were past menopause, number one, and then started them on hormones. Number two, they used chemical hormones. And a lot of times now you've talked about people having compounded hormones and all that kind of stuff. But they used hormones, both estrogen and progesterone together, and it was in a pill form. And it was conjugated urine from horses, that's just how they did it then, which sounds horrible, but that's exactly how they did it. And they also used this artificial progesterone. So the pill itself wasn't really helpful. And it metabolizes through your liver, which can cause more problems. The patch does not, my little teeny adhesive thing, doesn't metabolize through your liver. And now it's a different kind of estrogen. So when you are in your reproductive years, the estrogen that's being released is estradiol. There are three, sometimes they call 4 different kinds of estrogen. We'll just talk about 3. Estradiol is what the replacement is. That's what the patches are. When we are pregnant, we have something called estriol, and that's the estrogen that's going up and down. And right after if you've had a baby, right after you deliver, that estrogen and progesterone just completely tank, which is why a lot of times we have baby blues and,
So emotional.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And if you're nursing, that actually delays the onset of, starting up the estrogen cycles again. But you also have the hormones that are happy hormones that kind of make you feel, oh, woo, this feels really good. Things like when you feel like you're in love, kind of thing, and you're in love with your baby. So it's somewhat mitigated there. But when you go into postmenopause, so we don't have any more estradiol going on because we don't have
Mhm.
anything coming from the ovaries, and all of
Right.
our eggs are gone. Do you know that we
Mhm.
start with 2 million eggs when we're babies? And we
Wow.
end up with, we lose, 1,000 a month. It's pretty amazing. So, yeah, isn't that wild?
Yeah.
So by the time we're 40, we're down to, 10,000 eggs, which is one reason it's so hard to get pregnant when you're
Pregnant at
older.
that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So by the time we use that last, viable egg, we're at menopause, and at that point, our body is saying, "But we need estrogen from somewhere." It can't produce estradiol. The way it
Mhm.
produces estrogen is through fat. Oh, goody. How exciting is
That's so fun.
that's
Yeah.
right. It produces a different kind of estrogen called estrone, and estrone is not it's not as potent, and it doesn't have the same kind of brain activity as estradiol does. And so where does that fat usually come from? Belly fat.
Yes.
Isn't that nice? My butt
Yes.
disappeared and my belly got bigger. What in the
Yes.
heck is that about?
Yes.
And now my jeans don't fit anymore. Good.
Right.
It's so annoying. So all that to say is that we do have estrogen throughout our entire lives. But um, I think what I'm hearing from a lot of the women I talk to is that doctors are becoming a little bit more comfortable with prescribing. They now call it MHT, menopausal hormone therapy, MHT. And a lot of times the patches seem to be actually kind of the better option for a lot of people. It's actually seen to be it's shown to be a little bit better than taking pills. Some people use creams. There actually are estrogen pellets that are kind of just under the sun, subdermally, in your top of your thigh kind of thing. There's estrogen cream. There are estrogen rings that you can use. There's all kinds of ways to get this supplementation, and it kind of goes back to, do you just do estrogen only, as Dr. Quinn originally talked about? That kind of works better because progesterone itself is very calming, but it also can cause some brain fog, not what we need. So I did estrogen only for years and years and years. By the way, this is not medical advice. This is just my own experience, just to be clear about this. And some women are there, they have had estrogen dominated breast cancer or other issues that say, you can't do estrogen. So please talk to your doctor about that, of course. But more and more doctors are feeling more comfortable prescribing estrogen for perimenopause and even postmenopause. I will say that the science now says that you must start the estrogen, let's just call it HT, hormone therapy, within 5 years of your last period. If you start it
Okay.
10 years later, like they did in the Women's Health Initiative, if it
Right.
started that long, you're actually your chance of having heart issues or breast cancer goes up.
All
So
right.
I
That's
part
crazy to me. That is
I know,
crazy to
I
me how
know.
that works.
Yeah,
And so how many
absolutely.
years just check me on this because I'm in the scandal part of my brain right now, which is like what kind of generation of women did we hose by having this bad research?
A lot of them.
Like 20
So
years?
yeah, at least 20 years. Yes, because the Women's Health Initiative came out in the late, I believe it was the late 90s. I believe it was mid to late 90s. I think it came in, I'm not going to be, don't quote me. I think it's 96, might have been 96, because I was in that first, kind of cohort of people that said, oh no, I don't want to do this. They said, according to the studies, 95% of the women who were on estrogen or hormone therapy, HRT then, dropped it. And that meant that because of that, many of them had more problems, medical problems. Here's the other interesting thing is I didn't know this until I've done a lot of research on this. So there's one person who's just so adamant, he's so furious about the effect of the Women's Health Initiative. And he's an OBGYN, and he says that I had no idea. This just still kind of blows me away. I'm going to tell you, I promise. I'm just still, I'm just still kind of amazed by it. That breast cancer is not detectable for 9 years. 9 years. So that
Wow.
means that some of those women in the Women's Health Initiative already had the beginnings of breast cancer and
Right.
didn't know it because they screened for breast cancer before they started the study. They eliminated people who had breast cancer, but some of that breast cancer wasn't even detectable, even with mammograms, even
Wow.
with, being
Interesting.
able to feel. I know, isn't that wild? So the other piece is that it estrogen is supposed to be good for your heart, and it can be good for your heart. There's ongoing research. I have to say there's ongoing research, but there's never enough research about women. Never enough. We, um, I just was listening to a podcast from someone who talks about menopause, and she used the term, they think we are little men. We are not little men. We have a completely different, not only different physique and different, apparatus, but the way our body chemistry is completely different. And she's the one that reminded me that when you lose that estrogen, every single part of your body is affected as a woman.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
when
totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you mentioned that men also have, something similar because testosterone declines too. So testosterone goes down gradually, right? Testosterone has never had these cyclical up and down kinds of things, but estrogen goes whoop, 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 bam, and it just so no wonder we're just kind of in shock because our body's kind of like, "What the heck is going on?" And our brains, even if you are not diagnosed with ADHD, whether it's before or during menopause, many women who are not ADHD feel like they might have lost their brains. They might
Mm.
go
Oh,
to the doctor,
absolutely.
I've lost I don't even know what I can't remember my address either,
100%. And I'm that person. I am that person
right?
too. So, right.
Yeah,
So, Linda, you have built a business around 40 and better,
yeah.
and you have lots of presentations and you've spoken at well, you have the Women's Palooza, which
Yeah.
you've been doing for years, and I've been a part of, which I'm so
Mhm.
honored to be a part of it. This is obviously a passion of yours, and I want to know, and I got to figure out how to structure this question the best way I can. What is it that people wanna know from you? Like, when you are doing these presentations and you get these Q&As, like, what are women craving to learn more about and understand?
I think most of the women that I work with are diagnosed later, like at 40 or 50 or sometimes even 60 or 70, for heaven's sake. I've talked to one woman she was 88 years old, and she was planning her 90th birthday party, and what she wanted to do was to clean her house and make books for all of her grandchildren, all 7 of them, and she wanted to, hand embroider all this stuff. She was ADHD, and she's still trying to do this at 88 years old. So I think what most people want is a little reassurance that they're not alone because it feels, as both of you know, ADHD can be a very isolating experience because we have these blinders on that we think everybody else has got it together, but except for me. And I I don't want anybody to know, which is why people come to ADHD with a mask on. They kind of come to it with, I have to act like I understand what's going on even though I'm clueless. I can't keep up with the conversations. I can't keep my house organized. Everybody else can do it. Why can't I do it? My kids are I have forgotten to pick my kids up after school at
Mhm.
school. I mean
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things, and it was horribly embarrassing because the people are standing there going, "Excuse me? You were supposed to be here 20 minutes ago," and my
Right.
kids are going, Again, mom." My kids,
Mhm.
as they were grown as they grew up, they learned to not expect me to pick them up at the airport on time.
Oh, no.
It does.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
They can be taught, our
exactly,
kids.
exactly. But I have to say, these days, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's like, "Oh my god, how long have I can't be that old, but I can, but I am, but never mind." The for At the beginning of this, when I was learning about my own ADHD and realized, it was ADHD and it was estrogen. It was just that. It wasn't me being horrible. It wasn't me being silly. It wasn't me forgetting things and pretending I didn't. It was nobody knew about this hormone connection then. So when I talked about the hormones, people were just like, "Really? Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it." Now the hormone issue is out there a little bit more. It's not always out there accurately, but a lot of the women that I talk to are perimenopause, and they're just freaking out because it's too much. No, we have ADHD, and keep in mind, when you're over 40 or 50, et cetera, we also have normal, I don't like that word, normal aging things going on as well, and that compounds the issue of ADHD and compounds the issue of perimenopause. So you have this, Venn diagram saying, "Here's you in the middle of this, totally freaking out because you have all 3 things going on." Um, I I heard from my son when my mom was my son was maybe in grade school that our brains shrink as we get older, and he used to taunt my mom with that constantly. "Oh, ma, your grandma, your brain is shrinking, your brain is shrinking." Now what I found out is your brain starts shrinking in your 30s. Every year
Yeah.
you lose a little brain capacity, and by the time you're 65, most of that brain shrinkage is just happening where? Prefrontal cortex, exactly where ADHD does its little dance, or doesn't dance, actually. So, there are lots of things that women wanna know. I did a survey, and I said, "Okay, I wanna talk to women who are over 40." This is so un-ADHD. It was 125 questions.
Wow.
Some people actually filled it out.
Yeah.
And I had a chart, and I said, "Which of the things are the most difficult for you now, and which of the things were most difficult when you were younger, when you were a kid?" And when they were a kid, it seemed like it was more about education. It was more about, "I don't do well in school," that kinda stuff. But the older women that I did this survey with said that their number 1 issue was disorganization, and number 2 was memory.
Yes. Yeah.
Those things and
Yep.
and I teach organization, but I don't teach memory, because how do you teach memory? I don't
Well, you don't necessarily teach it,
know.
but we did do a podcast with, Daniela,
Daniela? Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
and it
I love
was
her. Yeah,
yes, so fascinating about
yeah,
how you can support it and
yes,
understand it, which
yeah,
I think that it's that like what you're saying, it's that there wasn't a lot of talk and awareness about what's going on, so you think you're just going crazy, and I think
yeah,
that the memory conversation we had was, "Oh my gosh, I have dementia," when
yeah,
really, no, maybe that's not we don't need to jump to that conclusion yet.
right, right,
Um, so you're talking about the isolation, the education, you're doing a lot of education.
yeah,
You talked about this like uh, whammy, right?
mm,
ADHD, hormones, and then also the aging process.
mhm.
Where do we go from here? Like what kind of hope can we give to our listeners when you hear this?
Well, it's kinda like that lady who leaned over and said, "It'll get better."
Yeah.
Because it does get better. I will say that, obviously, I remember that story vividly because I bring it up often when I give presentations, and Um, it does get better, but I will say that I never did get back quite to the place I was before, but I think when you get to be 50, when I hit 50, I was kinda like, "You know what? I don't get many more do-overs. I wanna start doing what I really love and what I really want to do in my life," which is when I changed careers. I closed my advertising agency, and I started working on I trained to be a retreat facilitator before I trained to be a coach, and then ended up focusing on ADHD kind of 2 or 3 years in, so that by 2025 by 2005, I was working specifically with ADHD. But I think when we get a little older, number 1, some things fall away. We don't care quite so much what other people think of us, so the mask can loosen a little bit, and even knowing about your ADHD helps that. It allows you to feel a little bit more, well, for me, it this is old because some people may remember or may not. There used to be a commercial on TV, and it was for V8, and it was like, "Ah, I coulda had a V8."
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a V8, right? So now I say, "Ah, it was just my ADHD." You know? It's just that. It's not a character flaw, all that stuff. So I began to understand more about ADHD, and I began to realize, you know what? My husband, who is OCD and has an IQ of about 175, or at least he used to. I think it's age to go down a little bit. He forgets things too. He forgets things as well as I do. So we remind each other of things. So it becomes a little bit more normalized. And there's been a interesting, not a very big research project, but a research project that it talked to women who were over 60. And what they found was that these women had a much higher life satisfaction at age 60 than they did when they were younger. And it probably is because of the things that I've just mentioned. It's acceptance, it's embracing who we are, whether it's our ADHD or whether it's our foibles or, oh my gosh, I have to tell you, I held up this glass of water. And before we got on today, I was worried because I couldn't find the link. And, oh my gosh, how they're not, I don't, is this not happening? I was all worried about it. I set this glass of water down. It was this, had this much in it, turned it over right in my lap. I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh,
no.
I have to go I have to go change my clothes." Not that you can see it, but it was pretty uncomfortable.
Well, of
It's
course.
just one of those things, and I have to tell you that I've done this 3 times now in the last 3 weeks. I did it in a restaurant. I did it right where we have sit and we watch TV, and now I did it for you. So
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, it's like, "Oh, well, I have more clean pants upstairs."
Yeah.
I
Just keep
just
them coming.
So
exactly,
what's really funny about that, Linda, is you and I don't know if it was for ADDA or if it was for your Palooza, but I know you were on the call. I was doing a presentation and I spilled the water all over my desk in the middle of the presentation. And I couldn't, like, it was live. So
Yeah,
I couldn't just like walk out. But I remember saying something. And at the end, you said, well, you handled that quite well, my friend.
you did, and that kind of resilience, I think, is what we all develop over time.
Yeah.
You know, we begin to realize what's important in life, and the truth is, when you get to be 50 or 60, you have lived more than you're gonna live. You're more than halfway there. And I have people in the organizing groups that a lot of us do crafts. And one of the things that we love about crafts is collecting all the things to do the craft. We don't really like doing it. We like collecting the things to do it, right?
Right.
And they will say, you know, I have all of this stuff to do crafts. You know what? I don't have enough years left to do all these crafts. And they actually decide, no, I'm going to get rid of this. It lightens our load. And it begins to feel like, you know what? I can be freer here. And it's not that death is a specter sitting over there going, oh my God, you have to, it's not something that hangs over you all the time. But there is a heightened sense of your own mortality and how you lived your life. I will tell you the truth. I ask people to look back on their lives and see, what has it been for you? Have you loved it? Has it been always a disappointment? Where are those dreams that you are just kind of still dusty back there? It's time to live those dreams. Maybe you don't want to climb a mountain, but maybe you do want to do that craft. Or maybe you want to downsize and not have so much yard to take care of and be able to go out and, go to exercise in the middle of the day because I still can't do that. I go in the morning. So I I think it's really about living the life and living the life that you deserve. You didn't know about your ADHD a long time ago. There's some regret about why the heck did nobody figure it out? Why could I went to so many therapists when I was younger, and they told me I was controlling and that I was this, and I mean, it was, all I was depressed. All those things can be tied to ADHD. Overreacting, control issues, because I couldn't control what was going on here, I tried to control it out here. So, I really look back on my life and I think, I I really did a lot of things that I really enjoyed doing accidentally. I worked in deadline-driven businesses like TV and news and newspaper. I liked doing those things. Why? Because it's ADHD driven. I didn't even know it. So I bet a lot of your audience has done a lot of things in their life that they really was because of their ADHD and they didn't even know it, that actually turned out pretty well. And if and if they have a chance, they can actually live some more of those dreams, some more of those exciting things. It might be jumping out of it might be bungee jumping. I don't know. It won't be for me, but it might be for them.
But something you said about like you may not be climbing a mountain. Well, maybe I can't physically climb the mountain like I
Yeah.
did, or could have 30 years
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
but I can go visit. I can go see it.
You
I
bet.
can, travel and still experience things, maybe not in the same way, but you can still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love your
Absolutely.
message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Important.
I went to just on the edge of Switzerland some years ago, and we went to Mont Blanc, which is the mountain that has all the snow caps, it's gorgeous and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't get to climb the mountain, but I got to go up on the ski lift. I mean, it was a ski lift, but it held like 30 people. I mean, it was it
Yeah.
wasn't like I didn't sit in something and walk up it.
And dangle. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. But I got to go up almost to the top of that mountain and enjoy seeing it without being cold, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't love. So thank you for that. You're exactly right. There are ways that we can adjust our lives and still get great satisfaction out of them. Basic satisfaction. So yeah.
This was great. So what do you want our listeners to walk away with from our conversation?
Number one, if they are still having periods and you're starting to have irregular periods, usually that's the first sign of perimenopause. For me, it was having little flushes in my cheeks, little kind of pre-hot flashes, if you
Yep.
were, flushes, if you were.
Especially if you drink alcohol. Like I noticed that for sure. Like,
Exactly. Or spicy food. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So if you're in that place, know that that you may or may not have ADHD. Obviously a lot of the folks in your audience know that they have ADHD. But this is the time where you can officially get diagnosed and feel good about it and not worry about whether you have Alzheimer's or dementia or all that stuff. Remember, I just want to say one more thing that I could have inserted earlier, and that is ADHD didn't start when you're 40. ADHD has been there all along. It is highly heritable, more than your hair color or your eye color, and I just one of the things that really stood out for me when I was researching about later life diagnosis is that if you get diagnosed and no one else in your family has been diagnosed, chances are there are other ADHD folks there, if you're living in a family of origin or biological relatives. It rewrites your family history. Suddenly, everybody back there suddenly looks different, and the things that they were that's not so crazy when you have ADHD, it's just ADHD. So in that period of time, be sure you check in not only with a mental health professional, but also with your OBGYN or PCP who can perhaps help you with hormonal supplementation if it's appropriate medically. And know that perimenopause is usually 7 to 10 years. And new research shows that ADHD women tend to go through perimenopause even earlier, as much as 10 years earlier. So you could be starting in your 30s rather than in your 40s. Got it? Most women have menopause. That last period happens at age 51 or 52. And that there is life post-menopause, because if you're 50 and you have your last period at age 50, you may live to be 90. That's 40 years of living post-menopause, and you have a lot of life left to live. So use your ADHD to best advantage. Let it take you on adventures like going to Mount Blanc or going to a mountain or doing whatever. Maybe you take tap dancing lessons. I don't care.
Mhm. Mhm.
Maybe it's something as long as your knees are still working. It really is a glorious ride. And I think that if you embrace ADHD as your own, because it's yours, it's there, it's gonna be there until you go off this mortal coil and feel good about the life that you lived.
Oh,
Let's
Linda,
end with
I
that.
love
That's
it.
wonderful.
Yeah, beautiful.
I love it. I love it.
Beautiful.
Give me chills.
ADDiva.com.
Yep,
That's still where we send people?
No, ADDiva.net. The guy who owns
.net.
ADDiva.com won't sell it to me.
Well,
I'm
how
sorry.
rude.
There's a guy who owns ADDiva.com.
Yes, indeed. He's out in California. I don't know. It's 20 years I've been trying to get it. Anyway, ADDiva.net is the ADDiva Network, and the ADHD Palooza is a .com. So, and by the way, ADDiva.net is a brand new look. After all these years, we finally have a brand new website. So head on over there. It's going to look all different. Yeah.
Good for you. All right. All the links in the show notes. Linda Roggli, thank you so much. You're a hero. Thank you for having me.
Such a joy being with both of you.
And to everybody else, we appreciate you downloading and listening to this show. Thank you for your time and your attention. Don't forget, if you have something to contribute to the conversation, we're heading over to the Show Talk channel in our Discord server, and you can join us right there by becoming a supporting member at the deluxe level or better, patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer and Linda Roggli, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll see you right back here next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.